this is Jay DeCarey, and you are listening to Beats and Measures.
Yep, this is Devin DeCarey, and same thing that we're doing. We're talking.
Oh, really? You're doing the same thing I am?
Yeah, apparently.
Hey, let's get into it, because I know this is going to be a heavy discussion. We're going to be talking about Queen today.
Queen!
The quintessential rock band.
Oh, it's so good. Queen is one of my favorite bands.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. Of all time. Groups of artists, one of my favorites.
I've had peaks and valleys of where I've appreciated them more than other times. And I don't know, it's just because I was young when I was first introduced to them. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, they're great. Of course, they're really hot right now, particularly with the biopic that was just released, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Dives a lot into the band, how it was formed in London in 1970. Ups and downs, musical triumphs, musical lows, everything. So let's get into it. What was your first introduction to Queen?
Oh, Queen. When did I first heard "We Will Rock You"? I think that was the first Queen song I heard, and it was just around in the zeitgeist. And I think
that one has one of those. That song, "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions." Yeah. Of course, it was very, very heavy radio play. That was actually my first introduction as well. Yeah. So that's kind of funny that there's like 20 years spanning us, and we had the same introduction to them. Mm-hmm. Of course, that is not just theirs, but that is the quintessential, what do you want to call it? Stadium anthem.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like, what stadio, what Super Bowl, whatever big stadium athletic game would be the same without those two songs. Yeah. Particularly the "We Are the Champions." And of course the "We Will Rock You" is usually like a rally anthem.
Yes. And what's interesting about those two songs, most people, I think, they hear a bunch of Queen songs in public, like in the radio and whatever, and they know about Queen or whatever. So they'll hear "We Will Rock You," and then they'll hear "Another One Bites the Dust," and then they'll hear "We Are the Champions," and then they'll hear "Bohemian Rhapsody," and then like someone will tell them like those are all Queen, and they're like, "What? Those are all the same people writing all those songs?"
Yeah. See, I didn't think about it that much because, of course, I was a kid.
Yeah.
When did that album come out? 75. I think "News of the World" came out in 1975.
I don't know.
So I was all of 4 years old, but I literally remember.
Yeah.
That song being everywhere.
Okay.
And when it wasn't everywhere, my parents were playing it, their friends were playing it. I remember 8-tracks in cars. You remember 8-tracks, don't you? You're not.
No, yeah, I missed on 8-tracks.
Anyway, they were kind of actually fading out even as I was a kid. Cassette tapes were coming more into play. But anyway, that song was literally just everywhere.
You're talking about "We Will Rock You" right now?
Yes, "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions." It was in stores. It was in hotel lobbies. It was just everywhere. Heavy, heavy radio play.
Yes. In the movie, they talk about, I don't know if this is true. I hope it's true because it's brilliant. Brian May approaches the band and is like, "I want a song that the audience can play for us."
I remember that.
Remember that?
Yes.
And I'm like, no one else can. That's the perfect song for that. You set a goal and you wrote the perfect song to achieve that goal. Like, I really hope that that's what happened. Because that's a brilliant idea, and it's executed perfectly in that song. It's an anthem. And everyone can play it, and everyone can sing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone can do that, and that's what makes it so perfect.
Yeah.
And they just capitalized on that really, really well.
It was one of my favorites, of course. So that song, as big as it was, I was young, so it didn't cause me to actually look more into the band. Like, nowadays, I'll come across a band that's been around, established for a while, I'll grab onto a song, and it makes me want to go back in their catalog.
Yeah.
And I was a little young to be doing that, at that time. And actually, for Queen, for as much of a fan I was, I didn't really even start looking back on their catalog until Bohemian Rhapsody, which got a resurgence in the early 90s from Wayne's World. And that kind of brought that song to a whole new generation. And that's actually what caused me to go back in their catalog. And because I'd heard Bohemian Rhapsody, but I didn't appreciate it at the time until Wayne's World came out. And that was just, the brilliance of what that was. Yeah. Of course, I knew the other songs that they come out with. They're kind of like pop rock phase where they were doing, Crazy Little Thing Called Love and Another One Bites the Dust and, you know, Radio Gaga and those kind of songs that were just more of a pop rock.
Sure.
Not that they abandoned that rock, because it was still, you would still
There's
consider
an
it a pop
edge.
song, but there was definitely an edge to it that was rock.
But it was pop.
Yeah. Another one bites the dust strays from that a little bit, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what actually caused me to go back, and I discovered songs like Bicycle Ride and Fat Bottom Girls and, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's sort of the second layer of Queen. I feel like there's like the first layer of Queen where you just hear it randomly, and then when you look, then you find like Fat Bottom. Yeah, because that's my experience too. Is like when you do any bit of digging, you find those songs.
So again, that I think the resurgence of Bohemian Rhapsody in the early '90s regarnished my appreciation for early Queen. How cutting edge it was.
It's
how completely a departure it was from anything that we had going on at that time.
Yeah.
Led by this incredible music arranger, songwriter, and vocalist.
Yes.
I mean, how many things can you say that haven't already been said about Freddie Mercury?
You can't. Freddie is one of the best voices of, like, it's so powerful and crazy. And then people, it's so transcendent that people have tried to explain away sort of like why he was that good. Like, they were like, oh, and I think Freddie did it himself. I don't know, like, he talks about having like extra teeth or whatever, and more teeth means the inside of your mouth is bigger, and if the inside of your mouth is bigger, your range is much bigger. So his full voice could soar up really high and low, and so that was sort of,
That's a theory. That's an interesting
theory, yeah.
You could say the same for Tina Turner, and for the same reason.
Yeah.
Almost. Because she can be, mid-range, and she could be screaming her lungs out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, so that was one theory as to why he was just so good. He was also classically trained. He was an opera singer. And he brings a lot of those dramatic sensibilities into his vocal performances. Putting it all on the line when he's out there singing, and you can hear it every single time. So just the guy's transcendent.
He didn't have a B game, right?
No,
he was always A. Always. I mean, maybe a little bit later in the years when it came close to his death, some of his solo.
Yeah,
you can hear it a little bit in his voice that he's just. But again, you wouldn't chalk that up necessarily to him being ill. He's just getting older.
Yeah,
and still by far a great musician. Yeah. I mean, this is the time period, later years I'm talking about, when he did that operatic album with, I'm going to mess up her name again, Montserrat Caballé.
Montserrat Caballé,
there you go.
Yeah.
So to be able to stand up with her, basically, who is also a classically trained operatic singer, soprano, and amazingly good, for him to hold his own in that company.
Yeah. And leave it to Freddie to get that to work. And that's what's amazing about Queen most of all. Whatever their ideas were, they got them to work. Let's write a song about a bicycle race. And they just, and it's kooky, and it's not even, it doesn't sound like anything on the radio, but we'll write it. And then they got it to work.
Yeah, they did.
Every goal they seem to set with all of their songs.
You bring up the songwriting. Queen has one of distinctions, and I can't think of anybody else. Actually, I don't know if this is true for Fleetwood Mac, but in the sense that every band member was a songwriter.
In Queen?
In Queen.
I believe it.
And a celebrated one. I mean, you can say the same thing about Fleetwood Mac, but there was definitely certain members in Fleetwood Mac that were definitely the key songwriters. Mm-hmm. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, Christy McVie. Those were the heavy songwriters. Mm-hmm. Not that they didn't all contribute, but a lot of the hits are contributed to those three band members. But Queen has the distinction of having all four band members all being songwriters and all basically contributing to their biggest hits. They all took turns at songs and songwriting, sometimes collaborating together, but a lot of on their own and then bringing to the table. So they've actually they're inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But they're also, all four of them are inducted into the Songwriting Hall of Fame.
That's amazing.
Which is a very big distinction.
Yes.
And the fact that all four of them got into that just shows how prolific they all were at writers. I know Freddie gets a lot of the credit for being the front man. He's the entertainer. He's the flamboyant one. But when it comes to actually producing the music, they all really worked at it together and did it well.
I can hear that in their music. You can tell that there are multiple minds at work. I mean, it has to be multiple minds at work to create some of these complicated songs. I don't know if you guys know this. It's hard enough to write a song. I think it's even harder to collaborate and write a song. I think that getting a bunch of voices to come together in one song is incredibly hard to do.
Well, it depends. I think that really depends on the songwriter. I think some songwriters are naturally more gifted when they're collaborating with somebody because they bounce off ideas. They're spur of the moment. They bring you to it. I think probably people that are very technically trained and kind of maybe know an angle that they want to go with a song might be a little bit more harder to collaborate as opposed to somebody who just wants something that moves them or just wants to feel a certain way or express a certain idea. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe we can incorporate that.
Yeah.
Where I can see where a more classically trained musician would be much more rigid and again, I'm generalizing here, in theory would be harder to collaborate with because you've got this, for lack of a better word, baggage of all these rules that you're trying to squish this idea into.
Right. As off the beaten path as Queen can seem to be with their music, sort of, they just it didn't seem to matter to them that they tried to, they would write their radio hits, but then they also had other sounds. Like, I always felt like there was their sort of experimental sound that they had, like, and then there was their old school rock and roll sound that they had. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were like 3 different modes that Queen would enter. There was a
well, they were very influenced.
Back.
They were very influenced by rock music, and not just like hard rock. They had heavy metal influences.
Yeah.
I mean, they even dived a little bit into the punk. There were elements of that as well. So
they were very musically steeped, in their time, and they wrote songs that were rock and roll hits that for their time. They were meant to be sort of rock and roll hits for their era. Like, I don't know, I Want to Break Free, that sort of thing. And then there was also their 1950s sound, which is Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
Yes.
And they had a couple like that.
That was kind of a pop rock.
Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy.
Yeah.
It was the sort of old school rock and roll kind of hit to it that they put a little Queen twist to it. Then there was their experimental phase where they had like Bicycle Race and Bohemian Rhapsody and all those other kind of Flash Gordon I would put in there, even though it's like
I was wondering if you were going to bring up Flash Gordon.
Yeah. I
was not a big fan of the whole Flash Gordon soundtrack. It just kind of went I just kind of went, oh, okay, you didn't do that.
Okay, fine.
That's a personal preference.
Sure. I still enjoy the main theme, the theme song, and I'll rock that every so often.
Yeah.
Because I can put that in the same category.
Actually, there's a couple times that'll come on, and it'll be like later on in the song. I'll like, oh yeah, this is from that movie.
Yeah. Well, someone says Flash, and I don't think of any other things. Someone says Flash, and I want to go, ah. Like, it's just a part of it. It just put an impression on me, should we say?
So let's talk about this, unless I'm cutting you off here.
No.
Back to the songwriting a little bit. One thing that Queen does very well, and probably better than anybody else in their songwriting and producing and the ultimate project that we hear, is they tell a very good narrative in all their songs. Or a bulk of them, I should say.
Sure.
Not all of them, but a bulk of them are very narrative. Tell a story, paint a picture, very clear.
Yeah.
And these are most evident in songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's telling a very specific story.
Yeah.
And of course, that has all the elements of the operatic, the acts, the 3 acts of a play being the 3 acts of the song, and so that kind of reinforces that narrative. But very few of their songs, their biggest hits, are just take an idea and talk about that idea. Most of them do gravitate to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Like, they are very clear in all their music. It's always a journey. I feel like they're very good at the journey, or they're very good at setting the mood and keeping you in that mood. And usually it's their anthems when I'm thinking about setting a mood. They'll set that mood and they'll keep you in that high energy place the whole song. And that's why those songs are just so brilliant. They also don't overstay their welcome with those anthem songs. They're pretty short and they're effective. They do really well in that.
They do what they're supposed to do, yeah.
And the thing about Bohemian Rhapsody...
There's only so many times you can stomp your feet and clap your hands in succession, and then you're like, okay, my hands are tired.
Exactly. They knew it. They just knew it. They had that sense for music. There's so much you can say about Bohemian Rhapsody. That intro, it's a beautifully amazing intro. It sets up and foreshadows the entire song. I don't know if you noticed. There's that part where Freddie's like, I'm just a poor boy, I need no sympathy, which is the first section. It's foreshadowing the first section, and then you have the chorus come in, easy come, easy go, little high, little ho, in that chromatic fashion, foreshadowing the second section where they go full operatic. And then you have, anyway the wind blows, doesn't really matter to me, which harkens back to the end.
Yes.
The very last section of the song where he says nothing really matters. And then the only section that's missing is the heavy rock and roll section right before that last section, which some might consider the coda of the song. And since it's called a rhapsody, we can call it a coda.
Yes.
The coda of the song is usually a departure from what the rest of the song... It's allowed... Basically, the coda is allowed to be completely different from the rest of the song in a lot of cases. And it's allowed to be longer. And so there you go. It's through composed too, which means that each section is distinctly different. It's not hearkening back to anything at any point.
Again, back to the 3 acts.
Yes. So that song is just well put together, intentionally well put together. You think a song that brilliant that it just comes to you, right? But these guys, they're thinking about this stuff, and it's a practice, So anyway, Bohemian...
They battled through that song. That was not an easy recording session, particularly... Well, if the biopic is to believe, I don't know how much creative license was taken with that, but you really see how much that was toiled with.
Yeah.
They went out to some farm out somewhere, and, they toiled and toiled and toiled and toiled. Well, how many songs we got recorded? 1,
Yeah.
So it's funny how sometimes we've had this discussion before too. You hear this from a lot of songwriters. You have ones that just come to you and they're perfect at time, and you finish them in a matter of hours, and you come up with this great song. And other ones that you never really know when to let go of it.
Yeah,
because you're piecing it together piece by piece.
Yeah, John Williams said that music is never finished; it's only abandoned. And if anyone knows about music, it's John Williams.
Carly Simon made a similar thing that she said her hardest thing in all of her songwriting that she does is to know when to say it's done. Because at some point you have to stop, because you're right, it does completely evolve. And of course, one of the benefits that we have of people that tour is that often you will get a glimpse of, hey, I was messing around with this arrangement and I came up with this after I released it. And sometimes you get to hear those different little extras or
little ideas
spin they put on it, or maybe they changed up the melody a little bit. So sometimes that's fun. A fun thing about going to see live performances. Sometimes it bums me out because I'm really looking forward to hearing my version that I love.
Yeah.
But all right, so having said that, let's dive into our top 5 Queen songs.
Top 5.
This was not as hard of a list to come up with as I thought. I thought it was really going to be difficult, and I actually came to the conclusions pretty quickly because just the songs that always come back to me as Queen songs keep always coming back to me.
Yes.
So one of the first ones that came up, and I will give you this one. It's my number 5 pick, and we'll make this concession.
Yeah.
If this was a number 10 list, I would move it up the list. It would be somewhere between 6 and 10.
Okay.
But I just think it belongs on this list because it's one of my favorite songs. It's kind of a departure for a Queen song, but it also happens to be their best-selling single of all time.
Oh, yeah?
Any guess?
Just
Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
So this, of course, came out in the mid-'80s, early to mid-'80s, when I was really coming into my own musical style, not my own musical style, my own musical interest and liking different kinds of music. And this, of course, was a departure from the Queen that I was first introduced to with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions.
Yeah.
But it was definitely just a really big hit. It was big on the radios. I just loved the bass heavy sound to it, mixed in with the disco influenced sound of the time, and it was a unique, and then that unique blending of sounds and or effects or whatever you want to call it was just very, very cutting edge at the time.
Okay.
I think that people did a lot more of that coming into the late 80s. You got into the people who were like doing the Max Headroom stuff with it's all the sound effects and whatever stuff.
Yeah.
But this was kind of like the first one that really they did that it was that, I guess you should say, synthesizer technology infused is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
So anyway, I always been one of my favorites. So whether it's a top 5 list type, and in fact, it might be number 10 if it's on my. If we were doing a top 10 list.
Okay.
It's not that I don't. It's not that I like the song better than other ones. I just think it deserved a place on any top list.
Yeah. I put it as number 4 for me.
Okay. So, but what's your number 5? Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead and discuss your number 4.
Okay, sure. Well, it's another one by. It's just it's an example of Queen just using the parts that they have to their greatest effect. I mean, there's not much to that song. There's that perfect bass line, and then you have a driving drum beat. And then you have Freddie's voice. And really, that's kind of all you need. That's most of the song. It carries the song. And it's just amazing. It's a testament to their composing abilities that bass line is just so perfect. And Freddie's vocal abilities that it's just his voice is enough to carry such simple ideas out for a full-length song.
Yeah. I love that he throws in the little Freddie-isms in that song. It is such a mainstream sound for them.
Yes.
Which they court often in there, but that's not really their goal.
Yeah.
They happen to hit it this time. But I love that he would throw in those little inflections like, hey!
Yeah.
Tiger! Things like that. And that's very Freddie.
Yeah.
He would do that in other songs, and yet you still can't escape the Queenism of the song.
Nope, it's still there.
But yet it is its own entity of itself and quite a departure from other things that they did.
Yes.
Or what they were really known for.
Right. That's my number 4.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is kind of obscure. I don't know. Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy. Know that song?
I do know. Yeah.
It's a great. It's just a fun song. And it's one of those Queen songs that I do keep coming back to. You have this sort of show tune quality to it that I appreciate. Mm-hmm. This sort of Broadway-esque, and the fact that the chords feel natural, but then the way they go in and out of modes throughout that song, it stimulates my brain, should we say. So yeah, I keep going back to that song. That's not most people's go back to song, but I listen to that song quite a bit.
No, it's decent. It's one of their good ones. I enjoy that one too.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Under Pressure.
Yep, that's a good one.
Which is their collaboration with David Bowie. Mm-hmm. So basically, both Queen, David Bowie, in their prime when they do this song.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the most underrated songs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an ingenious meld of both of them together, and that startup with the ding 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 ding, and just kind of like it grabs you right there.
Yep.
And like this song could go on, like this could be a Bohemian Rhapsody song, and I would not get tired of listening to it.
Sure.
But one of just the little trivia notes, side notes on this, is that I have to say this is one of the best musical collaborations ever.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Certainly.
And also a little piece of trivia: there would be no Vanilla Ice without this song.
There wouldn't. We would not know who that is.
This song, at least to the mainstream, this song is probably responsible for bringing the mainstream to, I guess, not an understanding or a recognition of what became sampling later on.
Oh yeah.
This is really a song that drove it, particularly because of the controversy of Vanilla Ice using it and not giving credit to the original songwriters.
Gotcha.
That was a big, and he, of course, went on talk shows and talked to DJs and tried to explain away that his was different. But everybody just said, "Oh, you got to be kidding." But anyway, that just goes to show you how transcendent this beat is. Mm-hmm. That it was it was part of this alternative pop rock song, and then it was turned into a rap song as well. So it's got a universal sound to it.
Yeah, it does.
And always been one of my favorites. And again, like I said, a little bit underrated. I know people know it, but I don't think it quite got its due, particularly considering the two big names attached to it.
Yeah. When you listen to that song, and a lot of people I think listen, there's a live version that Queen just does by themselves. Listen to the version with Bowie and Freddie. They're singing together, and it's amazing to hear Bowie shine through and Freddie shine through, and when exactly they do so, it just shows master orchestrators at their work, you know.
It's great that neither one of them outshine the other.
That's exactly, you would think one or the other, but no, it's a really.
And my bet would be on Freddie.
Sure.
Personally,
yeah.
So I don't know if that's a purpose or a conscious decision he made to keep it a little bit understated, or maybe they were just both bringing super A games, and it just showed.
Yeah, it's a really solid entry. My number 3 is Princes of the Universe. I love this song.
Yeah, I know you do.
I love this song.
I know you do.
Is it like, it's got to be one of the first metal songs. It's a metal song, first of all.
It's very metal influence, for sure.
I would consider it, if I were a metal fan, I would put this in my metal playlist. I mean, not that I'm not a metal fan, but I just don't have a lot of exposure. But to me, to mine ears, this sounds like a metal song. It has to be. The subject material of the lyrics, like, we're the princes of the universe, we're gonna take over the world, sort of thing. And it's very hard rock. It's one of my favorite hard rock songs ever. It's kind of the hardest I go. You still have that Queen influence. You still have that Queen coming back, that harkening back in it. Similar to, you know, their bigger hits, like, or the more avant-garde hits, I guess you might consider, like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's almost through composed, but not really. It's just beautiful. So I put that at my number 3.
My number 3, on a lot of people's list in my research when I was looking at this, I want to say that overwhelmingly 90% of them had this as their number 1.
Okay.
And of course, it's been the song of this podcast, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Is my number 3.
Yeah.
And I'll get into why my first 2 bumped this one out.
That'd be very interesting.
But this one was my number 3 because, of course, it's definitely gonna be in the top 5. I didn't know exactly where it was gonna line up. I was actually surprised. I had it at number 2 for a little while, but I felt like it was so close to my number 1 in how it made me feel and how I related to the song that I kind of just put a little separation in there, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But again, what can be said about Bohemian Rhapsody that we haven't already said? It is the quintessential Queen song.
Yeah.
It's his mini opera. Of course, it's from the A Night at the Opera album.
Yep.
And it's just this seamless blend of different musical styles. Again, as we discussed before, it's got a great narrative that is both disturbing and yet somehow triumphant. Mm-hmm. And even though it's tragic, it has this triumphant feel to it, regardless of what he's singing about, regardless of what the actual lyrics about. And there is something about this song. Of course, we already talked about the resurgence in the early 90s. Yeah. People talk about this song today. Yep. The movie is helping it to resurge again. I really think this song is going to live on for generations. People are going to keep coming back to this song and just loving it. I think it's going to be it's going to be their Phoenix song. It's going to be continue to be reborn and reborn through generations. So that's my call.
It's totally true. It's one of the best songs, and it's why, because of all that it can be talked about. I mean, no song has stimulated. No, I haven't really thought of another song more than I thought of Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's more dissected and talked about. Yeah, that's true.
And in my personal life, I've thought of Bohemian Rhapsody more than any other song. I think when I'm really trying to like pick it apart.
Yes.
Be like, what can I glean from this? Bohemian Rhapsody is always the one that I always try to glean from. That's why I put mine at number 1. Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's your number 1?
My number 1. So there we go.
So my number 2,
yes.
In contrast, and this is where I was flipping these 2 songs back and forth.
Okay.
And it more has to do with what my number 1 choice is the reason that I pushed it to number 3.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was pushing my number 2 choice, which is "We Will Rock You" / We Are the Champions. And the reason I put those together, I don't know if you know this, when this was in radio play, it was very often those two songs played together, almost all the time. It's very rare that they were played as their own individual songs on the radio. They were almost always grouped together. So I kind of put those together. And again, this was my introduction to Queen. It had super heavy radio play. I already said the song was everywhere. The Rock You is, of course, probably the number one stadium anthem song ever, followed by We Are the Champions as being the, the title winner, grasping onto that glory. And because this was my introduction, and I never forget the song. You know what I mean? It's impossible. It's so built into it was almost my introduction into rock music. Yeah. Up until that point, I had heard of a lot of Fleetwood Mac and kind of more your softer rock kind of forte, which is really what I knew, and a little bit more R&B and Motown type stuff. That was my exposure as a young kid, and this was one of the first groups I remember being exposed to that was actually a rock band. Yeah. And then of course followed shortly by people like Leonard Skinner and Journey and whatever and that kind of thing. But this is who I remember being the first one to call a really big rock band. And yeah, you can't help but turn these songs up, stomp to them, sing to them, and I think it really. That's why it deserved the number 2 spot. Yeah,
both of them. Number 2 for you?
Yeah.
My number 2 was actually it's different, and it's my personal favorite Queen anthem. It's I Want It All.
Oh, okay.
I Want It All. I put it at number 2. It's my personal favorite.
I almost said The Greatest Show, or the Show Must Go On.
Oh, the Show, yeah. No.
I almost said that one.
No.
But, okay.
I put I Want It All there.
But it's similar. Okay.
Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah.
This is the one that speaks to me more than the other anthems. I do obviously those other anthems are like We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. Yeah. Those will always be Queen's anthems. But my personal favorite is I Want It All. Just by how it builds within its chorus. It's just Freddie singing, and then the chorus of Freddie singing later within the chorus. It never fails to get me just pumped up. That's the one that gets me pumped. Yeah. So I got that at number 2. Then my number 1. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is what I can. And I don't use this adjective to describe songs very much, but it's probably Queen's most beautiful song.
Okay, great.
And again, I'm going back with Not Far From Type, the one that gives me the feels the most. Yeah. It's one of their most heartfelt and sad tracks, and it's Somebody to Love.
Yeah.
And because it doesn't sound like Bohemian Rhapsody, but somewhat of the style and the operaticness of Freddie's voice is very similar, I felt I needed to make a little bit more of a distinction. Yeah. Which is why Bohemian Rhapsody got kind of pushed into number 3. Because in a lot of ways, I get similar feelings from both songs. Yeah. But this one I can relate to more than Bohemian Rhapsody, just on a practical level. Yeah. Not a whole lot of people go through a scenario where they're confronted with their own mortality because they killed somebody. That's a very distinct story that is outside of most people. Yeah. This one is not. This one is universal. It's very human. But of course, it's definitely still a Queen song. Yep. The signature melodies are there. The complex harmonies. That's another thing we didn't talk to very much about Queen. Yeah. They harmonize like nobody's business. Yeah. And it's really, really prevalent in this song.
It's true.
And then, of course, just the vocals. Freddie just kind of going crazy. You feel his angst. You feel his loss. You want to swaddle him up and make everything okay for him. And that's what the song makes me feel. Overall, this is what made me transcend, at least for me, over the most obvious number 1 choices like Bohemian that a lot of other people had. This one always has given me that just I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. So beyond the fact of just being a good song and good music to listen to and fun to sing along with, it penetrates me on a personal level. Yeah. I can just really relate to that. So
that's fascinating. Yeah. That song, I struggled kind of keeping it on or off my list. But it is just such a fantastic song, and I started to talk about harmony. When I was doing my notes, I started to write down harmony notes, and it just got too technical.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is not gonna resonate with anyone. But just know that these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. This song and Bohemian Rhapsody are probably the two where it's the most obvious.
Yeah, I could
about how this particular talent, the harmonizing, is done so well between all of them: Brian, Roger, Freddie, John, right? John Deacon, yeah.
John and Brian.
So
yeah.
And they're still touring today. That's the other thing that's fabulous. Now, of course, there's only two members. I think John Deacon, is he still alive or is he just retired? I think he's retired.
I don't know. I believe it's Brian May and then the drummer.
Freddie's gone. Yeah, Roger Taylor.
Roger Taylor.
So those are the two original members that are still touring. They've had a couple of different lead singers. Right now, they're touring with Adam Lambert. He's kind of taken the helm, which, of course, vocally... definitely on par with Freddie Mercury. There will never be another Freddie Mercury, but definitely if they had to pick somebody to be on par, they've got a good one.
Yeah.
So
I haven't done any listening to the new lineup of Queen. I kind of want to though.
It'd be fun.
Yeah,
I'd love to see them in concert. I've never seen them in concert, but I'd love to.
I would love to see them in concert too. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so those are our top fives. Queen is brilliant. We love them. So we're going to move on to homework?
Yeah, so for me, my homework was Pentatonix.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, you've kind of made me change my thinking a little bit about this YouTube thing. Because it really can be used as a tool. It's not just these flash-in-the-pan people. People really get their careers established, and that's what I found out about with Pentatonix. Now, my experience with Pentatonix mostly up until now has been their Christmas albums. They've released 3 of them. I think I have 2 of them.
Okay.
So that was really kind of my experience. I gave a little listen to their studio albums, most of which are covers of other songs, but there was a couple albums that had like a majority of original music, and it was good. It's for those of you who don't know, this is an a cappella group that's most famously known for doing covers and changing up melodies or doing it in a different style or just presenting it in such a way, even if it is the same melody, a cappella, they can really play with the vocals. They have a bassist in there that does a good bass line. They do some hip hop stuff. I mean, it's kind of a mishmash of everything vocal that you could do.
Yeah.
And it really comes across pretty good. But like my favorite song by them at the time was off of one of their Christmas albums, and it was Mary Did You Know? Now, oddly enough about the song, the reason the song sticks in my head is because like the year previous, Mary J. Blige did a Christmas album, and she did a version of Mary Did You Know? And I was like, this is the best version of this song ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
And fast forward 1 year later, Pentatonix released their Christmas album with their version.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to take that back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to me, they do the ultimate version of the song Mary Did You Know? Of course, looking over a little bit of background on them, they were on a show called The Sing Off, and I was not aware of that. And they actually won the competition. They won whatever money, I think it was $200,000, and a record label deal, which was very shortly they were dropped. It was RCA Records, and they were dropped. And so they kind of returned to, which I guess they started out this way, they returned to their YouTube use, which eventually got them a record deal with Madison Gate, and the rest is history. But the point that was interesting on that is like watching their YouTube videos, I found most of my favorite ones were the songs they did on that show. Yeah. On the Sing Off show. They were I don't know if it was just because they were relevant, or they took a song and they twisted it around to where you kind of went, oh, I know that song, when you didn't really know. It's kind of interesting. So some of my favorites, and not that I didn't enjoy their studio releases and their covers, but really my favorites were from the Sing Off show. And one of them that came up as one of your top 10 one-hit wonders, and it was Video Killed the Radio Star. Yeah. That they do such a completely different arrangement on that, and it took me a second. I'm sitting there going, I know the song, but what is it? I couldn't place it. And then, as soon as they get to the chorus of it, then it's unmistakable. Right. Because the video killed the radio. Yeah, you can't even, no matter how you say that, you're going to get to that point. It's like, oh yeah, I know that song. So that one was originally done by the Buggles, but or is it Bugles? Do you say Bugles?
I pronounce it Buggles.
Okay, we'll go with Buggles.
G's.
The other one they do a really, really good job is Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On."
I love that one.
That is an awesome, awesome song.
Yeah.
And again, these are all on YouTube. I don't even know if these have ever been released on an album, but they're on YouTube, and they're great music.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the whole rules are with music, with YouTube videos being released, if they're even considered on charts, for artistic value or whatever else. I don't know. But they need to be. They're so good.
Yeah.
And, of course, another one that was my favorite, but I think it's just a favorite because it was my number one-hit wonder, and that was Eye of the Tiger. I really like their rendition of that, too.
Great.
That's an honorable mention. But the Let's Get It On probably was the best song I heard them do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It was good. I mean, again, I was familiar with them, but it was good to broaden my exposure to them, and it really shows you the value that YouTube and these other social media type things can play into people's music.
Yeah, it's blowing up. It's sort of a new sort of Wild West kind of thing.
Okay, so for your homework, I gave you Billie Holiday.
That's right.
And because I just wanted to dive into a different genre, and I actually have a point in giving you that homework assignment. Because it's going to lead into your next homework assignment.
Got it.
Billie Holiday, of course, was a jazz and blues singer from the 1930s, 40s.
Yeah, something like that.
And just she basically she set the tone for that to be a mainstream type of music that people sought out and listened to on the radio. So tell me what you thought.
All right. So Billie Holiday's voice is really just sort of that. It's what you picture when you hear just like an old-timey voice. I can totally see how her voice influenced a lot of styles like it. There's lots of character to it and lots of rubato, lots of freedom in the rhythm she sings. It has that classic big band feel to it. She's like a bluesy Sam Cooke, where she sets a mood and keeps you in it. It's not so much about the journey. It's more about the atmosphere that you set with your music, the mood that you set with your music. And she is just excellent at doing that. I really love listening to I'll Be Seeing You, Strange Fruit, April in Paris, and Crazy He Calls Me. These are some of my favorites to listen to. And I could hear just sort of Aretha in it. All these classic female voices that would come to, I could definitely hear it. So yeah, she was a delight to listen to.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you enjoyed that and got something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave you that in mind that I already knew what your next homework assignment was going to be.
Great, what is it?
Because now I want to give you another blues artist, but one that's relevant today. And her name is Susan Tedeschi. Do you know who she is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, you'll probably recognize a few of her songs once you listen to them, because a few of her songs have been Grammy nominated. I don't know if she won, but she is basically, she's more the blues folk, and she's very much more earthy and tonal in her delivery, but it's still blues music.
Yeah.
And I like it. She's one of the few relevant blues artists that's still doing work today. And I mean, that's what she does. She is a blues singer. I'm not saying other country songs that have a blues album. She is
great,
steeped in blues, and that's what she does.
That's awesome.
So check her out. That's your next homework
Susan
assignment.
Tedeschi.
Yeah, and you'll see just the different contrast as opposed to Billie Holiday blues and
the growing
today blues, the growing of where it's gone,
yeah,
and how much of it still resonates.
Yeah,
but yet, of course, it's different. It's more modern music. They have much more technology nowadays. But again, I don't even know that Susan Tedeschi needs to even benefit from that because she's just good.
Great. Yeah. Okay. And then your homework assignment.
Yes.
Dr. John.
Yeah.
Look him up. I happened across Dr. John on accident. I was at college, and I was walking by. I'm a composition major. I walked by the composer's computer, and this YouTube video was pulled up. I'm like, "What's this?" And it was Dr. John talking about the Bo Diddley rhythm, which is a fundamental rhythm in rock and roll music back in the day. And he was demonstrating it on piano and singing "Iko Iko." And I was like, this guy's cool. And then I kept noticing him like crop up in different places, and he ended up being in one of my favorite Yesterday covers. So look him up. give him a listen to. And I will do the same, actually. I need to do some concerted listening to that guy, too. But since I'm doing it, you might as well do it, too. Dr. John.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to us today. Let us know in the comments what you thought of our talk. Did we miss any points about Queen? Do you have other top fives? Do you think we were off the mark? Do you think we hit it on? Let us know what your thoughts were.
Yep. Tweet us at Beat and Measure. Find us on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, you guys.
See you next time.
Bye.